one of the things that happened in my former, god damn it, YouTube and if you see my frustration and you can hear it, it's because of the audio volume levels being such a piece of shit. Like, I'm asking YouTube, please help me solve this problem. There's a lot of microphone products and some of them are more shit than others. Which should I get? I can't mount anything on the wall. That's one requirement. It can't be something that I can't just that can if it has to be mounted with some little thing that you can't do that. Can't make those modifications. Can't hang things really much of anything on the wall. Won't work. Walls are too thin. So it needs to be something that's able to be detached from the wall. As far as requirements, as far as product is concerned. Anyways, I I've been telling like women on Tumblr that like I demand a pretty high premium to really engage in confronting men about their shitty behavior anymore. For the simple reason that I only too well remember my argument with RazorBladeKandy when I was still, fire in the dawn and everything and what happened in that discussion. And I think that a lot of what pissed me off was just the suspicion of all of it, and it left me feeling angry and upset because there was so much that just went unsaid and unsettled in the debate and everything that transpired and that I was not able to resort to. And plus I think that a lot of what I was god I don't know, I was just twirling around and playing with a sword at the time, and so that ended up being the fixation of the goddamn video and everything, which was stupid. It's dumb, and everything. I'm glad the thing's lost and nobody's able to find it. But, you know, what got me was this accusation of white knighting for Jen of those pesky dames and everything, for her video and everything, because, she lives clean other side of the planet, you know, and everything. So it's not easy to really seduce much of anybody from that far away and everything. But, I think what had me the most upset about it is that, being called a quote unquote white knight and everything about this stupid shit. When, Christ almighty, I don't actually give a single solitary fuck what Jen does. I don't give a rat's ass if she sleeps with me or not. Like, I hate it. And I didn't ask for any of this. I'm tired of being distrusted for no reason at all. And part of what pissed me off, too, the most, too, was take Jen out of the picture. Suppose she never made that video, never made this video in particular,
partner,
this one.
sleeping with someone who isn't your partner, having. Hello viewers. This week on Those Pesky Dames we're going to be talking about slut shaming, which is a topic so huge that I can't say everything I'd like to. Before we begin, this brings up some potentially triggering issues, so I'd like to issue a trigger warning for this video before I start. So, sluts. Slut, whore, tramp, skank are words, along with a whole host of others, used to insult women. When a person calls a woman a slut, what they usually mean is, I disapprove of her sexual activity or perceived sexual activity and wish to bring her down for it. So things which can get you called a slut include sleeping with your partner, sleeping with someone who isn't your partner, having sex with one person, having sex with more than one person ever, wearing a short skirt, wearing a tight dress, wearing makeup, flirting, having big boobs. And crucially, the thing is, you don't even have to do half of those things. People just have to think you are. One thing I want to say immediately is that judging someone else's sex life or perceived sex life is not okay. Whether a woman sleeps with 5 people in a week or with nobody ever, it's none of your fucking business. So stop imposing your own standards on other people and making them feel really shitty for no reason. Okay? Secondly, being a woman and enjoying sex is not a crime. We have such a messed up standard at play for women and sexuality in our society. Earlier this year I attended the UK Slut Walk along with, I think, most of the other dames, and Slut Walk is something that I'm going to talk a little bit more about in a minute. My sign read, this virgin whore dichotomy is getting pretty fucking old. and it is. On one hand, women are meant to be good girls and be modest and, God forbid, never ever want to have sex, because if you do, then you're a slut or an animal or unnatural. But on the other hand, women
Sorry about that. Family, moving forward. When I record, I don't want their.
are meant to look hot and sexually available at all times, and if we don't do that, then we're prissy or frigid or stuck up. There's no room for manoeuvre. How are we meant to express our sexuality in a healthy way? There is no alternative. We're damned if we do, and we're damned if we don't. Slutwalk happened because of the ridiculous comments of one Toronto police officer, Michael Sanguinetti. He said that women should avoid dressing like sluts in order not to be victimised. This implies that if you dress provocatively or like a slut, then you deserve everything that's coming to you, that you're asking for it.
I think it should merit pointing out that there are now videos on the internet of women in burqas being sexually harassed and assaulted.
And you're not. Rape or sexual assault or sexual harassment is never, ever the victim's fault. Ever. You are not to blame for it. I promise. Aside from his comments being victim blaming and slut shaming, they represent a myth that we have in society about rape. That rape is something which only happens to women who are slutty or who are asking for it or who are dressed provocatively. I'm going to give you some facts about rape which are inevitably hard.
It took me a long time before I realized that modesty culture was rape culture, that Christian modesty culture. It was one of the reasons why people asked what women were wearing, and when they testify that it happened to them.
Heartbreaking, but unless we begin to acknowledge these facts and talk about them, we're never going to dispel the idea that rape happens to women who are sluts. UCLA researchers found that 54% of teenage boys thought it was acceptable to rape a woman if she led him on. So don't tell me that we don't need to keep pointing out that rape is a bad thing, because clearly not everybody knows it is. 9 out of 10 rape victims are women, and women of colour are more likely to be raped than white women. 2/3 of rapes are committed by somebody the victim knows. Nearly a third of people in the UK think that a woman is partially or totally responsible for her rape if she was drunk. Drunken consent is not consent. A third of people in the UK believe that a woman is partially or totally responsible for her own rape if she was flirting. Flirting is not consent. She isn't responsible. Calling someone a slut has really serious implications. It's something that's used not just to insult women, but to devalue them as well. So if a woman is seen as a total slut, then it's okay to pester her for sex, to sexually assault her, to harass her, to rape her. After all, she's just a stupid slut who was asking for it, right? The idea is that sluts are less than people, and it's a way to justify treating women like shit and basically like they're subhuman. Slut shaming feeds rape culture. In the UK last year, 5 men in Preston were cleared of charges of gang rape because the woman had, in a previous MSN conversation, once said that she'd fantasized about the idea of group sex. When she arrived at the house of the guy that she'd been talking to, she was greeted by 6 men, all of whom expected to have sex with her. When she refused, because she only wanted to sleep with the one guy she'd gone to see, they raped her. The judge presiding over the case said that her credibility was shot to pieces because of that one conversation. This case is absolutely sickening. Admitting to having a fantasy is not a crime, nor does it justify horrific things being done to you. Desire for something is not consent to the act happening. What those men did to her was rape, and they should have been convicted for it. We get this equation drilled into us that woman plus sex equals bad woman. That by having sex, she is deserving of insult, of being ostracised for it, of being punished for it. Sex before marriage for women used to be a massive taboo. It could ruin your life. And thankfully, we've got over that particular hurdle. But female sexuality still remains as a bad thing in our society. Controlling women's sexuality is a way of controlling women. Slut is a term used by women as well as men. Through internalized sexism, women are encouraged to compete for male approval and male attention, which translates into a very limited kind of power. As Laura Tenenbaum said, slut bashing is a cheap and easy way to feel powerful. If you feel insecure or ashamed about your own sexual desires, all you have to do is call a girl a slut, and suddenly you're the one who is good and on top of the social pecking order. I've not been able to cover everything that I would like to in this video, so please get in touch. Video responses or email or Tumblr posts or comments or tweets or whatever. Tell us about your experiences with.
Now, what frustrated me the most about this, and left me like feeling like a lot had not been allowed to be said, or that the confines of the debate didn't really cover what it is that I wanted to go into in that, RBK versus Fire in the Dawn video about all this, is that to me, there's another video that you should watch, and it really explains all of what it is that I wanted to get into with RBK about why I vehemently disagreed with the hate train against her, but I was accused of white knighting, and I am rather indifferent, at this point and stage of things. Like, I hate it. There's always some guy in the comment section that's gonna be like, she's not gonna fuck you, bro, if you do or say anything at all in agreement with a woman, and I don't care because I'm not trying to seduce anything here. I think that what my frustration is this,
Did you know that sexual trauma can sometimes show up as hypersexuality? Here's how it works. When someone experiences trauma, especially something involving power, consent, or safety, the brain goes into survival mode.
Now, what frustrates me to no end about this, in context and everything, is that RazorBladeKandy presumed that I was signaling agreement because I wanted to manipulate this girl into sleeping with me, and that's the whole pretext that he comes at to attack me from it. And I could say, I guess she's kind of pretty, but that doesn't translate to wanting to sleep with somebody. And the frustration is just having lived, having been out there in the real world, having experience, having dated, having met women, having, relationships with the opposite sex. I've come to a realization, which is just that promiscuity is quite frequently a trauma response. So why is a girl sleeping around? Well, because somebody raped her.
Did you know that sexual trauma can sometimes show up as hypersexuality? Here's how it works. When someone experiences trauma, especially something involving power, consent, or safety, the brain goes into survival mode. The amygdala, which detects danger, becomes overly alert, while the brain starts to connect moments of relief or control with certain behaviors, even when those moments don't truly feel good. For some survivors, that means sex begins to feel like a way to stay safe. Saying yes can feel safer than saying no, because it gives a sense of control, a way to choose what happens next. In these cases, hypersexuality isn't about desire or pleasure. It's about protection, about the body trying to feel safe again after something unsafe happened. From a psychological perspective, this can be seen as a trauma response. The brain is trying to rewrite the story, turning powerlessness into choice and fear into something it can predict. So while hypersexuality isn't something that happens to everyone after trauma, it can be one piece of the larger picture of how people cope and try to regain a sense of safety. Understanding it doesn't excuse it, but it helps us make sense of it, and that understanding is where healing begins. Did you know that sexual trauma can sometimes show up as
So, by way of slut shaming, you are running a great danger of essentially uh taking a sexual assault survivor and demonizing her and insulting her for the very things that she did to cope with her trauma. And women's promiscuity is very frequently nothing more than a trauma response. And so, yeah, what has me so frustrated about the old RBK debate is the assumption that I guess you could say that I was just basically trying to, serve as an avatar for uh those pesky dames. Like I was just trying to be, the champion for what Jen put forward, and that's not true at all. You know, independently of Jen, without regard to her at all. I mean, if she hadn't made that video, I would still have eventually come to this point of view and this perspective. I would still have a response to it. I mean, if not being enough of a dick to slut shame a sexual assault survivor for the very thing that she did to cope with her trauma, if that makes me a white knight, then I stand before you proud to be this term that is essentially being demonized in the culture, and we are the best kind of people, and if you're not one of us, you're a piece of shit because you're not one of us. So I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I mean, if this is your textbook definition of it, so fucking be it, man. I you don't have, like, I defended Jen because I have come to the same conclusion that she has, but from a different point. For me, it was that sexual, like promiscuity in the opposite sex was something that I was beginning to see very frequently, you know, combined with this person being an SA survivor. I mean, I've seen it, and I can tell you from lived experience that when a woman is sexually traumatized, she will either, it will either increase or decrease her libido. It does both, and that, you will see examples of SA survivors that, went in both directions, and this is uh pretty prevalent out there in society. So by slut shaming, you're basically shaming somebody's trauma response a lot of the time, and that's more than a little mean. And I don't like mean people.